Hi, welcome to episode 20 of Photoshop Lightroom TV. I'm your host Marek Mularczyk from sitetrain.co.uk, and here we are once again, episode 20. It's been 20 weeks since we started, so it's been almost 5 months, and we go on. Now I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. I hope you enjoyed the tutorials in Adobe Camera Raw on managing images or editing images in Camera Raw. I'm going to expand on that in this week's tutorial. So one of the tutorials will be again in Adobe Bridge, and I'm going to expand. Okay. Now some more information. I have recently created a tutorial on how to use, well, not really how to use 3D tools in Photoshop CS5, but as an example of a really interesting tutorial on how to create a very interesting effect in Photoshop CS5 Extended using 3D tools. I'm showing in this tutorial how to use 3D tools to take a screenshot of, well, in this case I'm taking a screenshot of the website, I'm rotating it in 3D space, well, I'm converting to a 3D layer and rotating the 3D space, and then I'm showing you how to create depth of field effects using 3D tools in Photoshop CS5 Extended. Okay. Now if you're interested, go and watch that. Go to PhotoshopLightroomTV.co.uk. This is my blog, and on this blog you will find this video. You can watch it straight from there. So once again, it's PhotoshopLightroomTV.co.uk. You've got the link here at the bottom of the page, somewhere here. Okay. And then you can find this video tutorial creating depth of field using 3D tools in Photoshop CS5 Extended, using creating 3D depth of field. Okay, and now let's start with this week's tutorials. Let's start with the first tutorial, and this will be the expansion, or I'm going to expand on the Adobe Camera Raw in Adobe Bridge. So let's have a look on that. Okay. So here I am in Adobe Bridge, and I'm going to show you some additional techniques of editing images in Camera Raw, in Adobe Camera Raw. This is the follow-up from the previous week, from the previous episode of Photoshop Lightroom TV. As you already know, Adobe Bridge ships with every Adobe application. So if you have Photoshop, you will have Bridge. Or if you have Dreamweaver or InDesign, you will have Adobe Bridge as well. Bridge is free, you can't buy it, you can't download it, it comes as a package, which is great because Adobe Bridge comes with Adobe Camera Raw. Okay, so let's have a look, let's see what we can do. I've got this image here of my daughter Julia, and we're going to edit this image. You can see this image is red and needs to be darkened a bit here, maybe brightened in some areas. Generally, there's some room for improvement. So I'm going to open it in Adobe Camera Raw. So I'll just right click on the image and select Open in Camera Raw, and this will launch Adobe Camera Raw within Adobe Bridge. So I'm not opening Photoshop. Okay, I'm going to press F key on the keyboard to maximize the window. I can press F once again to resize that. Okay, so we've talked about the basic tab last week, right? I'm going to just have a quick look in here. Let's see, oh, change the white balance to auto. Well, not too bad, a bit too red. Let's see, flash looks very good very often. No, I think I'll stick with as short, and I'll just reduce the tint because the image is slightly red, just a bit. Let's see, about 0 instead of 4. Looks not too bad. Okay, looks better, that's good. Now I'm going to jump straight into the effects panel. Okay, in effects panel we can deal with the grain. Okay, I do have some grain here, a bit of grain, because this is an image on a very high ISO, okay, ISO 1000. So I'm just going to move that a bit, and I'll just try to remove some grain in the image, or add grain in this case. Okay. Now what I want to show you in here, if I just double click on the hand icon, this is the tip I'll show you in Photoshop Lightroom TV. We'll go to the film lens correction, and now in CS5, this applies to Photoshop CS5 and Bridge CS5 as well, and Lightroom 3, we have lens profile corrections. So what we can do is the application will try to detect the lens that was used for the photograph. Okay, in this case, I know what lens I use. I use the EFS 1785 ultrasonic lens. So I'm going to do is I'm going to enable lens profile corrections. And look at that, Bridge detected my lens and it adjusted the image. That's a before and that's after. Now this is pretty amazing. Now if Bridge or Lightroom doesn't detect your camera, you can select your camera and lens from here. There's loads of lenses. Now this is new in CS5, so this technique only applies to Bridge CS5 or Photoshop CS5. Okay, it looks great. I think it looks really good. Now I'm going to turn this image into a black and white. Okay, so I'll go to the HSL Grayscale tab, this one here. I'll click Convert to Grayscale. Okay, let's move the greens a bit to the right just to soften the image. Looks great. Okay, and now I'm ready, so I'm going to save this image as to JPEG on my desktop. So I'll click on Save Image, save it in the same location. I'll leave the same name, I'll save it as JPEG, and I'll apply the maximum quality 12 to this image. I'll just say click Save, and Bridge is going to save this image onto my desktop. When it's done, this message in the bottom left corner will disappear. In the meantime, I can just press Done to exit this window to return back to Bridge. And when the image is saved as a JPEG, it will appear here in Adobe Bridge as well. Oh, here it goes. Here it is. Okay. Now I will have a follow-up soon, and that's it for today. So let's go back to studio. Okay, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial in Adobe Bridge, in Adobe Camera Raw to be precise, because it is Adobe Camera Raw from within Adobe Photoshop as well. Now, some more news for you. I have recently found out that Bert Monroy finished his latest design, his latest project, Times Square image. Design. You must have heard about Bert Monroy. He's an amazing Photoshop artist, digital artist, using Photoshop and Illustrator. He creates things in Photoshop Illustrator. I've learned a lot from Marek Mularczyk, loads of interesting techniques. Some of the techniques I have been showing you on Photoshop Lightroom Bridge are techniques I learned from Marek Mularczyk. Okay? Now, if you go to PhotoshopLightroomBridge.co.uk, you can find out all the information about this painting and link to Bert's website, a fantastic website, a fantastic painting, Times Square, and there are many well-known faces on this painting. Okay? I managed to find my friend Terry White and Julian Cost. Bert is there as well, and many more. So check it out. Go to PhotoshopLightroomBridge.co.uk and check the Times Square. Again, another fantastic design with hundreds or thousands of layers, and I think it's like 6 or 6.5 gigabytes when flat. Amazing, really amazing, and it created entirely from scratch using Photoshop and Illustrator. Okay? So go check it out. And one more, just to remind you, go to PhotoshopLightroomBridge.co.uk and watch the tutorial about using 3D, about creating 3D depth of field in Adobe Photoshop CS5 Extended. Okay, you'll see the links somewhere here at the bottom of the screen. Okay, now let's move on to the next tutorial. The second tutorial will be about, well, in Lightroom this time, and I will show you some interesting techniques about managing catalogs within Lightroom. Okay, so let's have a look on that, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, here's the second tutorial of this week's episode of Photoshop Lightroom TV. I'm in Lightroom, so I'm here in about Adobe Lightroom 3. Now, first thing I noticed, and what I wanted to show you here, is that I'm looking at my catalog, and all these images have the question marks. Okay, and there are these film thumbnails in here. Okay, what happened is that these images are missing somehow. Okay, it says photo is missing if I roll over it. If you look in my folders tab, you can also see that all these folders have question marks as well. Okay, you can see where I am. I'm in the folder 2010 and folder number 10. what happened is, well, these images are on an external hard drive, okay? And this hard drive is disconnected. How do I know? Because there's no light next to the letter referencing the hard drive, and when I roll over it, it says offline. I actually had a tutorial about that, or now a post about that, on the blog PhotoshopLightroomBridge.co.uk. So what's happening here is the images are on external hard drive and it's not connected to my computer. But how come I can still see these previews? Right? I can select one of the previews. Let's say if I scroll down, I can select one of the images. So this one here, and I can double click on it, and I can see it. It says the image is offline or missing, but I can see the preview even in a loop view. That's because the way I manage my catalogs is that the catalog and the previews, because these are previews, are on my laptop, and only the original files are on external hard drive. That's why I can still see the images. Now I'll show you where I keep them. If I just right click on any of the images, I can go to folder in library. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Show in Explorer. Show in Explorer. Yes, locate, and this will show me where I am. Okay. Documents, Lightroom. I'm just going to cancel that. So that's why if you keep your catalog on your internal hard drive, you will still see the images and the previews in Lightroom. Okay, this was a quick tutorial in Lightroom. Let's get back to studio. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the second tutorial here in Photoshop Lightroom TV. Once again, I'm Marek Mularczyk from sitetraining.co.uk, and you're watching Photoshop Lightroom TV. Episode 20, or 20 as they say in North America, in the States and in Canada. Okay, I hope you're enjoying this. Now I've got a tip of the week for you. Now here's the tip of the week. Actually, two tips of the week. First one is about sharpening in Photoshop. If you're sharpening the images on a separate layer in Photoshop, change the blend mode of the layer to luminosity to make sure you don't have color shifts in pixels. Okay, now I'm sure you've never heard of it. Okay, now tip number 2, also in Photoshop. Wow, I'm giving you 2 tips of the week. I know, it's because it's episode 20, that's why. Okay, I'm being generous today. So tip number 2 is also in Photoshop. Now if you go to sharpen the image, but you also want to remove the noise from the image, do noise reduction before you sharpen the image. Okay, so here are these 2 fantastic tips. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Marek Mularczyk from sitetraining.co.uk, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week in episode 21. Okay, so have a wonderful week. I hope you enjoyed that, and see you next week on Photoshop Lightroom TV. Bye bye.